Shalom in the name of Yehoshua HaMashiach, and welcome to this continuation of this investigation into the teachings of Paul of Tarsus, Shaul of Tarsus, pertaining to what he says about the Torah. Now, in this video, we're going to look at Paul's understanding of the weakness and the unprofitability or the incapability of the Torah to overcome sin and to bring life. Now, if we go to Vayikra or Leviticus chapter 18 and verse 5, we read, "You shall therefore keep," this is the Most High speaking, "You shall therefore keep my statutes and my rules. If a person does them, he shall live by them. I am Yahweh." So this is foundational. He says, if a person does them, the commandments, he shall live by them. Now, Paul understands this passage, but he understands that this passage, this purpose of the Torah, which was, to bring life to the one who would do the commandments, was not actually fulfilled and could not be fulfilled because of man's sinfulness. And he breaks this down in Romans chapter 7, where he says, "What shall we say?" This is from verse 7. You can read the whole chapter, but because of time, we'll just read a few verses. He says, "What then shall we say? That the Torah is sin? By no means. Yet if it had not been for the Torah, I would not have known sin. For I would not have known what it is to covet if the Torah had not said, 'You shall not covet.'" Again, it's that idea of the Torah revealing sin. And he says, "But sin, taking opportunity through the commandment, produced in me all kinds of covetousness. For apart from the Torah, sin lies dead." The idea of the Torah rousing sin within him. He says, "I was once alive apart from the Torah, but when the commandment came, sin came alive and I died. So the very commandment that promised life proved to be death to me. For sin, seizing an opportunity through the commandment, deceived me and through it killed me." So you see, Paul's reasoning is that yes, the Torah was given to bring life, but unfortunately, because of sin that was within him, that sin was actually stirred up by the commandment. And the commandment, rather than bringing life to him, he says the commandment brought death to him because he sinned more through the commandment. And this is Paul's understanding. He says in verse 3 of chapter 8, he says, For the Mighty One has done what the Torah, weakened by the flesh, could not do, by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin he condemned sin in the flesh, in order that the righteous requirement of the Torah might be fulfilled in us, who walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit." So see what he says here. He says that the Torah could not do what it was supposed to do because of sin. And we know, and so he's saying that the Torah could not bring life, and the Torah could not overcome sin because of the sinfulness of man. And so he says that the Most High had to send his Son in order to get this accomplished. Let's go to Psalm 119 verse 9. If we go to verse 9, it says, "How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word." So according to this psalmist, he's saying that the way that a young man can keep his way pure, i.e. can keep his way from sin and from transgression, is by guarding his way according to the word of Yah, according to the commandments. Again, he says in verse 101, he says, "I hold back my feet from every evil way in order to keep your word." So it's the basic idea that those who rejoice in the commandments of Yahweh, those who seek after the commandments of Yahweh, they will keep their way from sin, because the word of Yah is powerful, you know. And so if we are rejoicing in his commandments and seeking after his commandments and seeking to do his commandments, his Torah, then we will not sin, because that is the very purpose that Yahweh gave the commandments for. And in verse 93 of the same psalm, he says, I will never forget your precepts, i.e. commandments, statutes, for by them you have given me life. So the experience of this psalmist is that the Most High Yahweh gave him life through the commandments. So this idea that the Torah could not bring life because of the sinfulness of man is simply incorrect, because the psalmist himself here is confirming that Yahweh gave him life through the commandments. Again, we can look at the prophet Ezekiel in chapter 18 and verse 9. Let me read this in the scriptures, actually. Speaking about the, man, he says, if he walks in my laws and he has guarded my right rulings in truth, he is righteous, he shall certainly live, declares the Master Yahweh. This is important because Yahweh is saying, look, if you keep my commandments, if a man keeps my commandments and guards my statutes and my right rulings, he will live. In other words, life comes through the keeping of the commandments and the delighting after the commandments. Now, why would he say that if actually you could not have life through keeping the commandments? It's a contradiction with the teachings of Paul, I'm afraid. Yahweh himself says very plainly that the one who keeps the commandments will live. He is righteous. And finally, the words of Yehoshua himself. This is where the rich young ruler, as he's called, comes up to him. And let's read it here. It says, and see, one came and said to him, good teacher, what good shall I do to have everlasting life? And Yehoshua's answer is critical. He said to him, why do you call me good? No one is good except one, the mighty one. But here's the thing. If you wish to enter into life, guard the commands. So Yehoshua himself says that the one who wishes to enter into life, the one who wants life, should keep the commandments, should guard the commandments. And he says it in other places as well, as you can see from these footnotes. So contrary to the teachings of Paul, Paul says that the Torah could not bring life and could not overcome sin, whereas the prophets and Yehoshua himself disagree entirely, and they teach that the Torah can bring life, does bring life, and can to overcome sin, we should keep the commandments according to the prophets and according to Yehoshua. This is another example of how Shaul Paul teaches against the Torah and teaches against Yehoshua.